Hello everybody and welcome to the Ultima monthly licensing webinar for November. Thanks very much for joining. My name is Ian Jard and I'm one of the Microsoft licensing specialists at Ultima, and you can see my contact details there on the screen. Today we are looking at the Microsoft security products and the licensing associated with those. So we'll be going through the new suites that are available from Microsoft. This session is being recorded and the recording will be made available with all of the slides later on. We can also send this on to anyone within your organization. Similarly, if you'd like to understand how this may impact you, please feel free to contact myself or your account team directly. I'd be more than happy to kind of walk you through the scenario for your own organization and how this information relates to yourself or the impact that it has. This is going to be a high level overview, should take around 20 minutes. Of course, there are several layers of further depth we can kind of go into, but hopefully keeping it to a level that does cover at a good level in regards to Microsoft security and compliance products and how they are licensed. So what I'll be doing is I will start off by setting the scene in regards to Microsoft 365, mainly because a lot of the licensing I'm talking about today has a prerequisite for licensing already purchased by your organization. In regards to your organization already using Exchange Online or Office Online, you're using that Microsoft 365 product suite. We'll then focus in on the security products and then the compliance products and run through some scenarios. And towards the end of the webinar, I'll run through some of the other updates in regards to Microsoft News, and of course, time at the end to cover off your questions. Please do ask questions as we go. I will try and track them and cover them off at the end. Similarly, feel free to contact me directly or your account team directly after the call. So I did just want to make sure I was setting the scene in regards to Microsoft's cloud technology, because what we're looking at here on the screen is effectively their Office 365 and then which is their productivity cloud software, and then you have the Enterprise Mobility and Security Suite E3, and then you have the Windows Desktop. So what I wanted to effectively show you here, and this is the Microsoft 365 E3 offering. So this is Office 365 with EMS and Windows 10, all of that E3 layer. So that will give you things like Exchange Online Plan 2, it gives you that full version of Office, gives you Intune, it gives you Azure Active Directory Premium, it does give you that Windows 10 Enterprise Desktop as well, and very much that E3 layer. And what we're talking about today is a Microsoft Advanced Security and Compliance products. So I'm not saying that there aren't security products within the Enterprise Mobility and Security Suite. Of course, there are advanced threat analytics, conditional access, multi-factor authentication, but that's not necessarily what we are focusing on today. Today, we are focusing on that higher level of security and compliance product from Microsoft and how that's broken down and how that is licensed. So it is kind of important to understand in the context of this webinar that I'm assuming that you as an organization have got the Microsoft 365 E3 level of licensing. Obviously, if you don't, or maybe if you've only got Office 365 E3, or perhaps you've even got E5 on one, every organization is going to have their unique makeup and a unique scenario to themselves. But a lot of the things I'm going to be talking about today will assume that you have got that Microsoft 365 E3 layer. Now, on top of that, you would then have Office 365 E5, you can have the Enterprise Mobility Suite E5, you can have that Windows Desktop E5. And obviously, if you've got all of those, then you have Microsoft 365 E5. And that effectively gives you everything. That would give you all of the advanced compliance and advanced securities, all the things I'm going to talk about in a moment. But I didn't want to cover off that, of course, if you moved from Microsoft 365 E3 to E5, you get all of the E5 layer of products. You can kind of see them broken down in those boxes there. I appreciate you can't really read that, but you will get a copy of these slides. But the idea is that E5 actually encompasses everything. What we're talking about today is this kind of middle section in regards to the compliance products being broken out. We'll talk through that. And in regards to that bottom section, kind of moving horizontally there, you can see the security stack. So that's what we're going to be really focusing on today. With the Microsoft 365 E5 stack on the left, imagine that big blue box being the entirety of all of the products that are available. Now, although this isn't, half of the cost would be made up of the Microsoft 365 E3 on the right-hand side, but then the other parts of E5 is you can buy the individual components for phone system, audio conferencing, Power BI Pro, but all those other individual components have been bundled together into what is now the E5 Compliance Suite and what is called the E5 Security Suite. So when we're looking at, first of all, the Microsoft 365 Security Suite, actually we're just talking about effectively three products. It's Advanced Threat Protection, it's Active Directory Premium Plan 2, and it's MCAS, the Cloud App Security. Now we will look into these three products a little bit more detail further down the line, but when it comes to Microsoft 365 Security, it is Advanced Threat Protection, it's Active Directory Premium Plan 2, and it is also the MCAS as well, the Cloud App Security. And then within that Microsoft 365 Security Suite, I mentioned Advanced Threat Protection, but you have like three different flavors of Advanced Threat Protection. In this instance, what we're talking about here, you have Advanced Threat Protection for the Office 365 suite of products, so the cloud-based email filtering. Excuse me, you're getting all of the threat trackers, the attack simulator that you can see on there, which is all part of Advanced Threat Protection Plan 2. So E3 doesn't really give you any advanced threat protection. It's only within this security product, this Microsoft 365 Security, or of course the full E5, that you're getting this Office 365 Advanced Threat Protection. And actually, if we look across to the next section, which is the Enterprise Mobility Suite, there are advanced security products within that as well, and that's where we find the Azure Active Directory Premium Plan 2, which obviously includes things like privileged PIM, risk-based conditional access as well. We've also got that product again, the Azure Advanced Threat Protection. So as you can see, we've had Office 365 Advanced Threat Protection. Now the Microsoft 365 Security Suite also includes Azure Advanced Threat Protection as well. And then the final element of the Microsoft 365 Security Suite is Advanced Threat Protection for the desktop, also known as Defender, also known as Windows 10 Enterprise E5. And this is where, again, you can see all of the advanced functionality that you get with Advanced Threat Protection and Microsoft Defender, the advanced security features there. Again, very much licensed in a per user, per month basis. Okay, if you have an enterprise agreement, you might be seeing that as an annual cost, but this is a per user type license for all of those devices, all of that users, both their primary device and their secondary device, would be able to be covered concurrently with advanced threat protection. But that Microsoft 365 Security Suite, bringing advanced threat protection for EMS, for the desktop, and for Office 365 on a per user basis. Alongside that, you also have the Cloud App Security and Azure Active Directory Premium. Now you can also, and I'll come into this to cover this off later, you can buy certain parts of those as individual components as well. But if that covers off the top grey square there on the right hand side, that was Microsoft 365 E5 Security as a suite. The next suite available is their compliance products. So within Microsoft 365 Compliance, within that, Microsoft have broken that into three areas. So you can buy the full compliance suite, but you could also just potentially buy Microsoft 365 Compliance Information Protection and Governance. You could just buy the Insider Risk Management or the e-discovery element as well. So even within this suite, there are three smaller sub-suites within that as well. Certain products are carried across as well if we start to break them down. But one of the points which is worth making is that you can buy that Microsoft 365 E5 compliance suite, and there are savings there within the wider suite. I've actually taken out the pricing because it wasn't too relevant, but what I wanted to show you is this graphic, which shows if you wanted to just get the elements of the insider risk management, you buy that as a suite. And actually, if you look at the price, that's going to cost you roughly £4 per user for the insider risk management. If something like information protection and governance would be £4.50-ish. Now that full kind of compliance suite, you're going to start seeing that at around £6. So you only need a couple of those smaller suites to justify the larger suite. And actually, if you look at each one individually, the compliance suite saves you kind of around 45 to 47% saving by going for that full suite. So commercially speaking, Microsoft's general rules around once you're buying two of the components within a suite, or two of the larger suites within an even larger suite, that's going to justify buying that larger one. Once you're kind of doing more than 50% of the component parts, the larger suite commercially becomes more attractive, becomes a better commercial offer. But if we look within the Microsoft 365 compliance suite itself, we can see, well, okay, one of these options, which I mentioned off the bat, was information protection and governance, this kind of mini suite within this compliance suite. Information protection and governance is the one that costs about £4.50, so it is the most expensive one. You might see some replication there just on the far left with the cloud app security. We actually saw that appear within enterprise mobility and security E5 and within that security suite. So actually MCAS is that one product that actually branches and covers both of these suites. But you also get things like the machine learning and the customer key as well, with information protection and governance. It's all around this unified management piece where you can configure and manage your policies and start viewing some of those analytics as well. So I think there is some good capabilities there, especially around the intelligent data. Microsoft are doing a lot of work into machine learning, which is something around the autonomy and RPA side that Microsoft and Ultima are investing heavily in. So all around identifying that sensitive data, making sure you've got the appropriate protection around that, all around knowing your data, governing your data. And again, whether you wanted to use a planning services days or the multiple pre-sales or some available ESIF funding or even fast track funding from Microsoft. I'm not so much sure about the fast track actually, but most of the other pots could be potentially worth investigating. After the information protection and governance suite, we have that kind of smaller mini suite within M5 compliance, which is the insider risk management. And this is where you'll find elements such as PIM and customer lockbox. So it is this compliance solution to minimize the internal risk, but effectively insider risk management and all of those components there are meant to enable you to detect, investigate, and act on that kind of malicious activities within your organization. So it allows you to take action, proactively take action. And then the final piece within that compliance suite is the e-discovery and audit. So again, pretty straightforward, but kind of find it, get the insight, search better, end-to-end solutions, improve results, and kind of lower the costs. So if we think specifically with something like e-discovery within Microsoft 365 E3, it kind of provides that end-to-end workflow. So it would allow you to collect, review, analyze, export, all that kind of good stuff, internal and external investigations. So Microsoft have made a pretty significant play within this space. And Ultima have likewise made a move to support it with consultants. So do please speak to us if you'd like to explore any of those products further. In regards to the licensing, obviously we're all talking about it being a per user license. We're talking about these larger suites, but I did mention certain component products are available as well as individual purchases outside of the suites. So you can buy Advanced Threat Protection, Office 365 Advanced Threat Protection, or Azure Advanced Threat Protection, or Defender, for that desktop Advanced Threat Protection. Very keen to point out Those are 3 separate products available in 3 separate suites, all available via the larger security suite, but they are also available as individual components, because Microsoft recognized that it's probably one of the most popular products, and it's a lot more cost effective if that's the only one that you're looking at. Very much seen as the launch pad for the rest of the Microsoft security suite as well. And then finally available individually is MCAS and also Azure Active Directory Premium Plan 2. Azure Active Directory Premium Plan 2, very, very popular as an individual component to get that risk-based conditional access. So I did want to run through a couple of quick scenarios, because this really is where the majority of the work is. And if we take, for example, first of all, an organization that's looking at advanced, first scenario we look at is an organization looking at Azure Active Directory Premium Plan 2. So in this case, they're looking at utilizing privileged identity management, so using PIM. Now, this is a directory that does need to have valid licenses. So you would need to buy a per user license for anyone who would need to use privileged identity management. So the licenses must be assigned to the administrators and those relevant users. So what is a relevant user? So somebody who is going to approve and reject activation requests, like a user who is assigned to do the access review would need a license. Users who actually perform those active access reviews would need a license as well. Those assigned as eligible members would need a license. However, this isn't necessarily something that you would have to do organization-wide. For example, if you are just configuring policies and the majority of users potentially just going to be receiving alerts, those would not need an active license for Azure Active Directory P2. Actually, the people, potentially you could set up, you could be one of the people who helps set up PIM, actually helps set up the access reviews, but doesn't actively participate within them. Those individuals don't actually need a license either. So sometimes organizations see something like Azure Active Directory Premium and assume maybe it is an organizational wide requirement, certainly when the administrators are kind of setting it up and configuring those policies. But actually, if an end user is only going to be receiving those alerts, then they don't need a full license. So that's kind of done on a per user basis. Now I wanted to draw out the other scenario, I suppose, which is something where it's more of a tenant level type of license. For example, customer lockbox. So okay, again, your customer lockbox is restrictions of access, to restricted access to your data. So visible, Microsoft can't see your data within their data centers without you kind of giving them a key to do that. But this is something that is licensed at a tenant level because it's all data, right? So Microsoft approached the licensing by saying, well, okay, for some of these tenant level services, you only license the users who are intended to benefit from that service. So, for example, with something like customer lockbox, one user, one administrator, in part or in full, can access customer lockbox, and activate it for all users on that tenant. So, although technically unlicensed users may be able to access this service because it's been activated, a license is only required for any user that you intend to benefit from this service. So if there is if there's some users in a separate department in another country, you want to ring fence them with the customer lockbox, the licensing is very much done on a trust basis for Microsoft. We're kind of getting back to that traditional model around it being trust basis. So for these tenant level services, I could have picked another one other than lockbox. It is something that you can activate them for. Also, in theory, all unlicensed users may be able to access this service, but a license is required only for the users that you intend to benefit. And this really is when we need to start looking at your organization individually about how that's going to kind of work. What's going to be the most cost-effective, commercially best option for you. I did want to cover off some of the other general updates from Microsoft as well. I wanted to cover off, today we're talking about per user based licensing. There is some device based licensing coming to, which has arrived for, it says Microsoft 365 apps for enterprise. That is effectively Office 2019 via a per device based license. That's available from the 1st of August. Actually, we can see now some perpetual licensing coming to the CSP as well. CSP stands for the Cloud Solutions Provider, per user month-on-month licensing, cloud-based licensing. But Microsoft have announced that open agreements are going to be retired by December 2021. And this open agreement is this local-like agreement. Maybe if you just need to go and buy a license for projects, you go and buy a perpetual license, no software assurance, you just need to go and buy a license for whatever reason. You do that on an open, like a single one-off transaction, open agreement. They're being ended by Microsoft at the end of December 2021, but be aware that from September, last month, if it wasn't, it's completely wrong in regards to my months. But the important point is that there are perpetual licenses now available on the CSP platform. If you just need to go and buy a license for something, a server license, for example, all applications and server products are available. Actually, while I'm on the subject, you may have seen that Microsoft have made an announcement. May not have seen Microsoft have made an announcement in regards to, excuse me, their 2021 releases. Excuse me, their roadmap. So we are going to see Office 2021 in the second half of 2021. What is really interesting is that they've announced that, there's going to be a new Exchange 2021 on-premise server available for those still running a hybrid environment. Surprisingly, they're going to release Skype for Business 2021 as an on-premise license if you've still got a hybrid scenario for a number of organizations or industries that can't quite go to that full Teams telephony. Microsoft are releasing Skype for Business on-premise for those who are doing full telephony with Skype for Business and still have that as an on-premise solution. There's still, I think, probably with lockdown, there's still a significant amount of organizations doing that, and therefore there's going to be a new on-premise release of that as well. Software assurance benefits. So I don't have a slide around this. Software assurance benefits, you may have heard, if you have bought a license with software assurance benefits, you would traditionally get a number of training vouchers or planning services days. Microsoft have looked to phase these out, offer alternatives, whatever their wording is, but basically take them away. This was initially planned to go in April this year. I think that was extended to June, and we saw some training courses for Azure, some planning services days for Azure kind of be retired and no longer be available. Everything else was going to be phased out too, but that has been delayed slowly. But to be clear, by the end of June 2021, you need to make sure you've used all of your Microsoft training vouchers and your Microsoft planning services days. That's even true for those with an active enterprise agreement, which will last for longer than June 2021, of which there's a number of you. So it's all about redeeming those vouchers while you can. So please speak to your account team, speak to me, speak to your licensing team, speak to Microsoft, look at your agreement, and make sure you've got a plan around those. So that actually brings the webinar to an end. Like I say, I think we whizzed past it, whizzed through it, I should say, but I did want to make sure that the majority of the questions, the majority of the detail was covered. I do have a question here. Thank you very much. With Microsoft Defender for endpoint, it's not letting me scroll. Has an ATP already? Why can't I see that? I need to make that bigger. Thanks for the question. Has an ATP already been replaced with Microsoft Defender for endpoint. Yes, so it's all semantics. And also, I was going to mention a little bit regarding the marketing for Microsoft here. A lot of, advanced threat analytics, advanced threat protection. So Microsoft Defender is for endpoint is advanced threat protection. They're the same product. Okay. But Chris, obviously, just give me a shout if you want to follow up on any of that as well. But thanks very much for the time. Like I say, the recording will be made available. And thank you very much for your time.